History hands out the title the Great like a trophy. Alexander the Great, Constantine the Great, Pompey the Great. Most of them earned it with conquest alone. They won battles, they took cities, then history moved on. But there was one ruler who fits the title in a deeper way. He did not just break kingdoms, he stitched them together. He built an empire so wide it ran from the Indus River to the Aegean Sea, like a road laid across 3 worlds. He was feared as a commander, yet he was remembered for something rarer, a strange mercy, a calm patience, a gift for turning enemies into partners. His name was Cyrus the Great, founder of the Achaemenid Empire, king of kings, lord of the 4 corners of the world. And in a twist that still feels unreal, the only non-Jew ever honored by Jewish tradition as a messiah. For centuries, Cyrus stood as a model of the just ruler. And yet, the man himself is hard to grasp, because much of what survives is not Persian. It comes from Greek writers like Herodotus, Ctesias, and Xenophon. They do not agree. They argue across time. So Cyrus arrives to us through fog, part history, part legend. A life that shaped the ancient world and still refuses to sit still on the page. To understand how he rose, we need the world he was born into. In 612 BC, the Neo-Assyrian Empire collapsed. Its fall was like a dam breaking. Power rushed into the empty space. 4 great states rose from the ruins: Egypt in the southwest, Lydia in Anatolia, Babylon in Mesopotamia, and to the east and north, the Median Empire, the strongest of them all. Media stretched vast, from the Persian Gulf up toward the lands that lead to what is now Turkey. It held many peoples under one roof: Elamites, Medes, Eurasians, Persians. Different tongues, different gods. One hard authority. And then, in 593 BC, in the city of Anshan, a child was born who would shake that order. Anshan had once been one of old Elam's proud capitals. By then, it lived under Median control. The boy's name was Cyrus. Even his origin is disputed. Herodotus says his mother was a Median princess, the daughter of King Astyages. Persian inscriptions speak more simply: Cyrus, son of Cambyses. No royal Median line. Ctesias tells another story. Xenophon builds a different portrait. Each version pulls Cyrus toward a different kind of destiny. Herodotus preserves the most famous tale. Astyages dreams of danger. He hears that the newborn will rise above him, so he orders the child killed. But the infant survives, raised by a shepherd, unaware of his blood. Later, the truth surfaces. Cyrus returns like a storm. He overthrows Astyages and takes the throne. It is a story that echoes older myths: Sargon of Akkad, Moses, Romulus, and Remus. It feels built for legend, not for records. But legends often grow around real power. They cling to it. In 560 BC, Cambyses died, and Cyrus inherited the throne of Anshan. For a time, he played the loyal vassal. He sent tribute. He bowed to Median authority. He waited. But Cyrus was not built for obedience. And while the world saw a minor king on a small throne, something larger was already moving beneath the surface. That quiet obedience, however, was only the surface. Because beneath it, Cyrus was preparing to break the balance of the ancient world. Unlike his father, Cyrus did not accept the Persian position as permanent. At that time, the Persians were not a nation in the modern sense. They were a loose collection of tribes, bound by language and custom, but divided by loyalty. Each tribe answered, in the end, to the Median king. Cyrus ruled only one of them, the Pasargadae. Others followed different chiefs. Some were rivals, some were indifferent. None had reason to risk everything on rebellion. Cyrus gave them one. Slowly, carefully, he drew the Persian tribes together. Not by force, not by terror, but by shared purpose. Freedom from Median control. A future ruled by their own blood. By the time he was ready, the ground beneath Media had already weakened. In 552 BC, Cyrus stopped paying tribute. It was a simple act, but in the ancient world, it was a declaration of war. Astyages, king of Media, answered as expected. He raised an army and sent it east, led by one of his most trusted generals, Harpagus. What Astyages did not know was that the war had already been decided. Harpagus hated him. Years earlier, he had been punished brutally by the Median king, humiliated, broken. Now, when he marched against Cyrus, he carried more than soldiers. He carried betrayal. When the armies met, the Median force did not fight as one. Nobles hesitated, units faltered, and at the critical moment, Harpagus changed sides. He brought men, influence, and the authority of the Median elite with him. The war dragged on from 553 to 550 BC, but its direction never changed. Median discipline collapsed. Defections spread like cracks through stone. Battle after battle slipped away from Astyages. Then came the end. The Median army was routed. Ecbatana fell. The empire that had dominated the region submitted to a former vassal. And here, Cyrus revealed the core of his character. Astyages was captured. He was not executed. He was not thrown into chains. Cyrus kept him at court, alive, respected, powerless. A defeated king, but not a murdered one. This choice sent a shock through the ancient world. Cyrus did not erase Media. He absorbed it. He united Medes and Persians into a single political body. Former enemies shared power. Median nobles kept their positions. Administration became joint, not punitive. This was not how empires were built. This was how they were stabilized. On the site of his victory, Cyrus founded Pasargadae. Not just a city, but a symbol. A reminder that conquest did not have to end in ruin. To strengthen legitimacy, he married into the Median royal line. Not to dominate it, but to bind it to his rule. By 550 BC, the foundation was complete. The Achaemenid Empire existed. But an empire born in compromise does not remain unchallenged for long. Its rise unsettled every major power nearby. And one king, richer than any other, was already preparing to test this new force from the east. That test came from the west, where immense wealth and ancient confidence collided with a new kind of ambition. The fall of Media sent shockwaves across the Near East. Old alliances cracked, old assumptions failed, and no ruler felt more threatened than Croesus, king of Lydia. Croesus ruled a land rich in gold, so rich that his name became a measure of wealth itself. His kingdom sat in Anatolia, guarding the western approaches to Asia, and he had reason to fear Cyrus. Astyages had been his ally, also his family. Media's collapse was not just political, it was personal. Before acting, Croesus did what powerful men often did. He sought divine approval. Envoys carried lavish gifts to Delphi: gold, silver, sacred offerings, and the oracle replied with words that would echo through history. If Croesus went to war against Persia, he would destroy a great kingdom. He believed the meaning was clear. By 548 BC, Croesus gathered his forces at the Indus River, the traditional border between Lydia and the Eastern powers. At the same time, Cyrus moved quietly. He sent messengers to the Greek cities of Ionia, urging neutrality. Most refused. They were bound to Lydia. Only Miletus stayed out. Croesus was not alone. He secured alliances with Babylon, Egypt, and Sparta. The decision by Sparta to stand against Persia would matter far beyond this war. It was one of the early steps toward the future Greco-Persian conflicts. In 547 BC, Croesus crossed the Halys and invaded Cappadocia, land that had once belonged to Media and now answered to Persia. Cities fell. Populations were enslaved. It was a traditional campaign, fought by traditional rules. Cyrus responded with speed. He gathered his army and marched west without delay. The two forces met near Pteria. The battle lasted all day. The Lydians were fewer, but they possessed something dangerous. A heavily armed Greek phalanx, dense ranks, locked shields. Discipline honed through constant warfare. By nightfall, neither side had won. Losses were heavy, but Croesus withdrew, leaving the field to Cyrus. Confident in custom, Croesus believed the campaign season was over. Winter was coming. Armies did not fight through winter. He returned to Sardis, dismissed his mercenaries, and sent word to his allies. 5 months, he said. Gather your forces. We will finish this in spring. Cyrus did not wait. Instead of retreating, he advanced, straight into Lydia, ignoring the rhythms of ancient warfare. Caught off guard, Croesus scrambled to respond. He still assembled an army larger than Cyrus's, strong in cavalry and confident in numbers. They met on the plains near Sardis. Croesus planned to stretch his line, to envelop the Persian flanks. Cyrus saw it instantly. He anchored his best troops on the wings and prepared for impact. Then the battle broke in an unexpected way. Cyrus placed camels at the front of his line. The smell, the sight, the unfamiliar movement. The Lydian horses panicked. Their cavalry collapsed almost at once, turning strength into chaos. With the cavalry gone, the Lydian line folded. What followed was not a battle, but a collapse. Croesus fled. Sardis was besieged, and within days, one of the richest kingdoms on earth was finished. Cyrus had not just defeated a king. He had overturned the old order of Western Asia, but the greatest city of the ancient world still stood beyond his reach. And it would demand a different kind of conquest altogether. That city lay to the south, ancient, immense, and seemingly untouchable, and its name alone carried the weight of civilization. After Lydia fell, there was only one great power left in the Near East that did not answer to Cyrus: Babylon. For a time, Cyrus avoided it, not out of fear, but patience. Babylon was not just a kingdom, it was an idea. A city older than memory, wrapped in walls, protected by gods, guarded by rivers. But peace between these two powers could never last. In the spring of 539 BC, the Persian army began its march toward Mesopotamia. Their path led through a landscape shaped as much by water as by stone, and Babylon knew how to use that. Nebuchadnezzar too had transformed the region into a weapon: canals, dikes, floodplains. When the Persians approached, Babylonian engineers diverted rivers and flooded the land ahead of them. The flat ground turned to mud. Cavalry slowed. Supply lines strained. Cyrus did not retreat. For months, Persian engineers worked with quiet persistence. They cut channels. They drained fields. They redirected water, not in anger, but with calculation. Later writers would turn this into legend. Herodotus claimed Cyrus punished a river for drowning one of his horses. In reality, it was disciplined military engineering. The decisive clash came near Opis, on the Tigris River. Opis guarded the northern approach to Babylon and the end of the Great Median Wall. When Cyrus and his general Gobryas met the Babylonian army there, the outcome was swift. Babylon's forces broke. The road south lay open. Still, Babylon itself remained. The city was vast beyond comparison. Its walls were thick enough for chariots. The Euphrates ran straight through its heart. A direct assault would have meant slaughter. Cyrus chose another path. He divided his army. One force camped north, where the river entered the city. Another moved south, where it flowed out. To Babylon, it looked like a conventional siege, but beyond the city, Cyrus gathered laborers, engineers, servants, and soldiers. They moved to an old artificial basin, long abandoned. Quietly, they cut a wide channel between the Euphrates and the basin. Palm trunks became dams. Earth was stripped away. When the moment came, the river changed course. The Euphrates dropped. From an impassable barrier, it became a shallow stream. According to Xenophon, water that once rose above a man's waist fell to knee-height. Cyrus chose the night of a major festival. Inside Babylon, the city celebrated. Music, wine, confidence. Behind their walls, the people felt untouchable. In the darkness, Persian troops entered along the riverbed. Guards, dulled by drink, offered little resistance. Before dawn, the city was lost. Prince Belshazzar was dead. King Nabonidus was not even present. When he learned of the fall, he surrendered without a fight. On October 26, 539 BC, Cyrus entered Babylon, not as a destroyer, as a liberator. He proclaimed himself king of Babylon, king of Sumer and Akkad. The city did not burn. Its temples stood. Its people lived. Soon after, Cyrus ordered the creation of a clay cylinder. It was written in Babylonian script for Babylonian eyes. In it, Nabonidus was condemned as impious and cruel, and Cyrus was presented as chosen by Marduk himself. The Cyrus cylinder was propaganda, but it carried something new: freedom of worship, the return of displaced peoples, respect for local gods and traditions. For Babylon, Cyrus was not a foreign conqueror. He was a rightful king, and with Babylon secure, the shape of the ancient world changed forever. What followed the fall of Babylon was not another conquest, but a decision that quietly reshaped the future of faith itself. When Babylon fell in 539 BC, its empire collapsed with it. From the Mediterranean coast to the edges of Arabia, cities submitted without resistance. Phoenician ports opened their gates. Trade routes reopened. Merchants welcomed stability after decades of war. But among all these regions, one small community felt the impact of Cyrus's rule more deeply than any other. Decades earlier, Babylonian armies under Nebuchadnezzar II had destroyed Jerusalem. The temple was burned. The population was uprooted and deported east. This was the Babylonian exile. For the Jewish people, it was more than defeat. It was an existential crisis. Their land was gone. Their sacred center lay in ruins. They lived as a minority within a vast imperial world, surrounded by foreign gods and customs. Many ancient peoples disappeared this way. They were absorbed. Their traditions faded. Their names survived only in broken inscriptions. After taking Babylon, Cyrus issued a decree. All displaced peoples were permitted to return to their homelands. Their temples could be rebuilt. Their gods could be worshipped again. For the Jews, this decree changed everything. They were allowed to return to Judea. The temple in Jerusalem was ordered rebuilt. Imperial funds were allocated to support the work. Sacred vessels taken by the Babylonians were restored. In the ancient world, this was unheard of. Conquerors destroyed temples. They did not rebuild them. They imposed their gods. They did not honor the gods of the defeated. Cyrus did the opposite. Because of this act, Jewish tradition gave him a title no foreign ruler had ever received: Messiah. Not a divine savior, not a figure of the end times, but the Anointed One. A chosen liberator. Cyrus the Great became the only non-Jew ever recognized as a messiah in Jewish history. The consequences reach far beyond one people. Without the return from exile, Judaism might not have survived. Without Judaism, Christianity would not emerge. And without Christianity, Islam would never take shape. A decision made by a Persian king altered the spiritual map of the world. Cyrus did not convert. He did not claim divine revelation. He simply ruled in a way that allowed faith to endure. To his subjects, this did not feel like occupation. Cyrus performed local rituals. He honored local gods. In Babylon, he ruled as king chosen by Marduk. In Judea, he ruled as the instrument of the God of Israel. This flexibility was not weakness, it was strategy, and it forged loyalty that armies alone could never secure. Yet ruling such a vast realm required more than mercy. It required a system strong enough to hold 3 continents together. And it was in building that system that Cyrus revealed his final and perhaps greatest talent. The talent emerged not on the battlefield, but in the quiet work of turning conquest into lasting order. Holding an empire together was harder than winning it. Cyrus now ruled a realm that stretched across 3 continents. Mountains, deserts, rivers, seas, dozens of peoples, hundreds of cities, each with its own laws, gods, and traditions. Most conquerors solved this with force. Cyrus chose restraint. He did not impose Persian culture on his subjects. He did not demand a single language or a single faith. Local rulers remained in place. Local customs continued. To many, Persian rule felt less like occupation and more like continuity. This was not chaos, it was design. Cyrus divided the empire into provinces, later known as satrapies. Each province was large enough to matter, but not large enough to rebel alone. At first, governors were drawn from Persians and Medes alike. Former rivals now shared authority, but Cyrus understood power too well to trust it blindly. Civil authority and military command were separated. The man who collected taxes did not command the army. The general who held soldiers did not control administration. Royal inspectors moved quietly across the empire, reporting directly to the king. It was a system of balance. Not perfect, but strong enough to last. The army remained the backbone of this structure. At its heart stood the immortals. 10,000 elite soldiers, always at full strength. When one fell, another took his place. To outsiders, it seemed as if the unit could not die. They were disciplined, well-equipped, constantly trained. They were not just warriors. They were a symbol, the visible presence of royal authority. Cyrus did not rule from a single capital. He moved with the seasons. 7 months in Babylon, warm and fertile. Spring in Susa. Summer in Ecbatana. High in the cool mountains. This movement mattered. It kept the king visible. It kept regional elites close. And it prevented any one city from becoming the center of rebellion. Pasargadae, the city Cyrus founded after defeating Astyages, held a different role. It was ceremonial, symbolic, a reminder of where the empire began. Despite its palaces and tombs, Cyrus visited it only a handful of times. The great ceremonial capital of Persepolis did not yet exist. That would come later, under his successors. Cyrus's personal beliefs remain unclear. Some sources suggest an early form of Mazdaism. Others describe devotion to Mithra. What is clear is this: Cyrus honored many gods. He sacrificed to Ahura Mazda. He respected Marduk. He acknowledged Ashur. In an empire of many faiths, he did not insist on one truth. He ruled as king of kings, not priest of priests. After 539 BC, the sources grow thinner, not because Cyrus faded, but because he stopped conquering. These were the years of building, administration, stability, roads, cities, order, but peace on the map did not mean peace on the frontier. Beyond the empire's northeastern edge lay the open steppe, nomadic riders, restless borders, and in the final years of his life, Cyrus would turn toward that horizon, convinced that even there, order could be imposed. That conviction would draw Cyrus away from the cities he had built, and toward a frontier where his methods would finally fail. In the late autumn of 530 BC, Cyrus gathered an army and marched northeast. Beyond the settled lands lay the open steppe, a world of wind and grass. This was the domain of the Massagetæ, a nomadic people skilled in sudden raids and mounted warfare. They were not rebels. They were not subjects. They were outsiders, and they had tested the edges of the empire more than once. The Massagetæ were led by Queen Tomyris. Greek writers describe her as fierce, resolute, and unyielding, a ruler shaped by war, not ceremony. She commanded horse archers who could strike and vanish like smoke. Cyrus approached as he often did, not with immediate battle but with diplomacy. He sent Tomyris a proposal of marriage. If she accepted, the frontier would be secured without bloodshed. If this was strategy, it was misjudged. Tomyris refused. She saw clearly what was being offered. Not partnership, but absorption. As the Persians prepared to cross the Araxes River, Tomyris sent a counteroffer. She would withdraw a short distance and allow Cyrus to meet her in open ground. Or she would cross the river herself and fight on Persian soil. Cyrus called a council. Most advisors urged caution. Stay on the southern bank. Strike as the Massagetæ crossed. One voice argued otherwise. Croesus, former king of Lydia, now an advisor. He urged Cyrus to cross first and carry the war into enemy land. Cyrus agreed. After crossing the river, he set a trap. A lavish camp was prepared, food laid out, wine left in abundance. Then the Persians withdrew, feigning retreat. A third of the Massagetæ army, led by Tomyris' son, took the bait. They found the camp. They feasted. They drank. When they were drunk or asleep, the Persians returned. The Massagetæ force was annihilated. Tomyris' son was captured. Soon after, he took his own life. When Tomyris learned what had happened, restraint vanished. She sent word to Cyrus. He had his fill of blood, she said, and he would drown in it. On December 4th, 530 BC, the armies met. At range, the battle was even. Both sides were skilled with the bow. Arrows filled the air. Then the Massagetæ closed. Heavy armor, battle axes, ferocious momentum. In close combat, the Persians broke. The army that had defeated Media, Lydia, and Babylon collapsed on the steppe. Herodotus would later call it the bloodiest battle of the ancient world. Cyrus fell. Whether struck down in the fighting or dying later of wounds is unclear. What is certain is that he did not leave the battlefield alive. Greek sources end the story with brutality. Tomyris, they say, found his body. She cut off his head and placed it in a skin filled with blood. Now drink your fill. Other writers disagreed. Xenophon claimed Cyrus died peacefully, surrounded by family. Ctesias offered yet another account. The truth is lost. But before 529 BC, Cyrus was dead. His body was returned to Persia. He was buried at Pasargadae, in a tomb that still stands. Simple, stone, unadorned. 2 centuries later, Alexander the Great would stand before it and read an inscription. I am Cyrus, son of Cambyses, who founded the Persian Empire and ruled Asia. Do not envy my monument. Cyrus the Great had conquered the world. But in the end, it was the limits of conquest that defined him.